This is Locally Sourced Spirituality with John Paul, encouraging sustainable and organic spiritual practices. You don't have to go anywhere to find the holy. It's right under your feet.
Hi, everybody. I am John Paul, and this is Locally Sourced Spirituality. This is episode 6, Music and Manchester. Today, for many of us, is dealing with local in a different way. I've said before that the divine, that God can be found anywhere, that you don't have to go anywhere to find God because God is with you all the time. The divine is right under your feet. The holy is right where you are. And so, with the way the world is, the way that we're connected, local today for many is Manchester, England. What happened there affects all of us. The news of this tragedy is in our living rooms. It's right in our hands. It's on our smartphones. And we can almost watch these things unfold in real time. And that has an effect on our spirit. 22 people died. 16 of them were children. They were at a concert and they didn't come home. So let's talk about music. Let's talk about going to a concert. I've been to many concerts in my life. It's some wonderful concerts, some great shows. I've seen many others, and a couple of my favorites were Lenny Kravitz when he played in Grand Rapids, and Tom Petty when he played at the same venue. Music has the power to unite us. When we sing together, there's neuroscience that shows that we form a bond when we sing together because we sing and we know the words and we're all in unison and we all take the breath that's required to sing at the same time so our hearts get in rhythm. Now, I'm a terrible singer. Anyone that knows me knows this. And I think a lot of people know, maybe most people don't know, but religious music is really not my thing. Spiritual music is. Because I think music is a spiritual thing. I think music is something that can move our spirits, that can inspire us and do wonderful things for us. Explicitly religious music, sort of, what's the opposite of floats your boat? I guess it sinks my boat. Now, I'm talking about songs with theological words in them, justified and sanctified and things like that. It feels like they're trying too hard. Now, I listen to Van Morrison and Pink Floyd and U2 and I like Kaleo and Lincoln Durham, Iron and Wine. I listen to these bands and these artists and I connect with them and I hear that they are singing about things that I'm dealing with. They connect with the world in ways that I've connected with, and I can make those things come together, and I can relate. So when I see the things I've learned from my faith emerge in other arenas, like in my favorite artists, like when I hear about the struggle with doubt that I read in the Psalms, also come out in the music that I listen to, I see the underlying truth of it. I see that they're connected in a new way and confirmed. I see that as an underlying truth. Because if it's true, it's true. If it's true in the Bible, then it's going to be true elsewhere. It points to an underlying truth that is behind everything. Now, last week, in the last week's podcast, I mentioned that I saw a home altar kit for sale at a local store. That was my attempt at a jab at consumerism, but then I realized that consumerism is like the air that we breathe in our culture. We're so immersed in consumerism that it's nearly impossible to imagine life in this country in any other way. But it does point to that underlying truth. It points to underlying things. If we use it correctly, if we use it, and if we read it, we can gain understanding and insight by the system that we live in. What are we being sold? What's the story that's being fed to us? What are we buying? What's the story that we're trying to tell with our stuff? You see, we can see the symptoms of our lives based on what we buy. Are we afraid? Are we buying things that will make us feel secure? Are we lonely? Are we buying things that will impress others so that we can have relationships? The things that we buy, the things that we accumulate goes to what we really want. And then revealing what we really want reveals what we really believe. If we believe that we have no fear, that we have eternal life, that we don't need to worry about our bodies, that we don't need to worry about where our food comes from, then we're going to act in a way that is giving and generous. And we're not going to hoard, and we're not going to focus on defense and security and weapons. There's a scripture story about the time when Jesus was about to give his life for all of us, and he was with his friends, with his disciples, and he was telling them what was going to happen, and they were having some sort of anxiety over this, as you should, as people do. He was telling them, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. So his love, or the definition of love for Jesus, wasn't about how you feel about someone. It's about how you respond to them. It's about how you act. It's about what you do. And Jesus is saying that those that love him will do what he said that we should do. So what did he say that we should do? I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you forever. This is the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it neither sees him nor knows him. You know him because he abides with you and he's in you. And then Jesus says, I will not leave you orphaned, I am coming to you. So that he's relieving their anxiety. They're not going to be abandoned. They're not going to be orphaned. In a little while, the world will no longer see me, but you will see me. Because I live, you will also live. On that day, you will know that I am in my Father, and you and me, and I and you. They who have my commandments and keep them are those who love me. So back to keeping the commandments of Jesus. And those who love me, or to say it a different way, and those who keep my commandments will be loved by my Father, and I will love them and reveal myself to them. His commandments were not to point out other people's failings. His commandments were not to worry about who is going to bed with who. Jesus' commandments were always about reaching the outsider. Jesus' commandments were always about feeding the hungry, clothing the naked. Jesus' commandments were always about justice. So the story about Jesus giving his disciples comfort in preparing them for his death, he spends a lot of time with final things, about summarizing his teachings and about being together. So Jesus made this claim that if you love him, that you'll keep his commandments. If you love him and keep his commandments, then the Father will love you, in that Jesus will love you, and Jesus will be revealed to you. Now we read this piece of text in 2017, and we try to put it into our context. And it says, if we love Jesus, then we'll follow his commandments, and then the Father will love us, and then Jesus will be revealed to us. But we already love Jesus, right? So it's this strange circular thing. But if we read it the way it was a story that Jesus was telling. It was when Jesus was sitting with the disciples, and he's sitting there in the flesh and the blood, and he's with them, and he has a relationship with them, and he loves them, and is saying that, listen, I've been with you, and I need you to listen one last time. Do the things that I told you, and you will have life, and you will know me all the better once you start to live this way. So what did he command? And what is it that we're supposed to be obedient to? Forgiveness, right? That's one of the main lessons of Jesus. forgiveness. We're supposed to share this good news with other people. That's a command of Jesus, to share this good news about this forgiveness. And of course, to feed the hungry and to clothe the naked and visit those who are in prison and are sick. And the sick are healed. You see, this is about living life together and sharing life with each other and making sure everyone's needs are met. So when we don't live together and we don't share in each other's victories and sufferings, then we become disconnected, right? The personality remake, when we have a major life event, happens in the context of community. If we're disconnected and we have a major life event, then we've made a change and our community hasn't really seen that change in us and doesn't really understand that change. So we're even further removed from community. I'm thinking of a really awkward high school reunion that I went to. Gosh, it was probably more than 10 years ago. I went off to college and I made some changes in my life. I gained new perspective, but I didn't maintain the relationships with my high school friends. And so I came back to this high school reunion and I was expecting to have a new relationship with my old friends. But they didn't know what I went through. They didn't experience the changes that I went through with me. So I was almost forced back into the role that I played back in high school, because that's the only way that those folks knew me when I was 16 and 17. So it was very uncomfortable for me because that was no longer who I was. So let's talk about Manchester. On Monday, my wife was looking at her phone and said to me, there was a bombing in England. And I didn't react right away because news like this has become all too familiar. But I read the story, and it was after an Ariana Grande concert. You all know this by now. And kids were killed. Kids just like mine go to concerts and they're figuring out life, and they're young adults who are living out some of the possibilities of a dream of when they were little, and they lost their lives. And what did the bomber accomplish? What is ever accomplished when a tragedy like this happens except to incite more violence and cause more pain? This is a path of destruction that leads to no place good. I don't know, but I bet that bomber was someone who lost contact. Someone who had a very narrow focus of the world and found in his isolation justification for his own mind to step off the path of everything that is good and right, and to step into distraction and pain and separation. Now, today is Wednesday. My daughter's last day of school was yesterday. And I have a son that's a college student, and he finished his second year of school. And they're getting a glimpse of what life is like, of what's right and what's good and what's holy. And they may or may not have glimpsed some of the things that I have glimpsed in my life. But that's okay, because they're developing an understanding of this world that is uniquely their own. We all experience the holiness and experience the divine through our own eyes and through our own experience. We feel it with our own hearts. We live it through our own spirits. And that is the personal relationship with God. And when I was taught that I needed to have a personal relationship with Jesus, I used to imagine the person of Jesus floating above the earth, probably 300 miles up, and being appreciative of what he did some 2,000 years ago. And how in the world do you have a relationship with someone like that? I didn't understand. But then when you tap into what he said about being obedient, about doing the things that you were taught, about learning who he was by what he did, and then you start to understand the relationship. You understand that you learn it and you live it, and then you have a deeper insight into the nature of the divine, and you grow in that, and then you are more apt then to live into that life of obedience, of serving, of self-sacrificial love. And so the relationship with Jesus develops, and it grows, and you develop then other relationships in the same way with family and friends, and you have all these relationships with the divine, with with those that are around you, with those that you love. And you are at least the sum of the relationships that you have. You're more than that, of course, but you're at least those relationships. And so you have this relationship with the divine. And you have relationships with your family and your friends. And it's all interconnected, and it's all beautiful, even the messy parts. So then in the middle of all that, there's the Manchester attack. And it's so dark and so contrary to what is good and holy. It's an attack on the vulnerable. It's an attack on the innocent. These kids were there as an expression of themselves. They were fans of Ariana Grande. And they connected with her music in some way. Going to a concert is almost like a pilgrimage. You go through the process of buying the ticket and getting ready, and you go, and there's the lines, and there's the anticipation, and there's the opening act, and then the person that you came to see is there, and they listened to the music. They heard the songs that they came to hear, and they're probably singing along with Ariana, and they're probably in sync with each other, and they were probably having a connective moment with those around them and with the music, and it was a celebration. You ever leave a concert just feeling just great? You've had the experience, you've had the connection, and now you're going. And she had just left the stage when the bomb was detonated. It wasn't a religious event, but it was a spiritual event because it happened to creativity. It happened in the midst of unity, and it happened in the midst of joy. It's that underlying thing that we can all affirm that is good and true, that those things are part of what God has given us, this creativity, unity, and joy. You see, that was a significant life event before the bomb went off. And then it happened. See, when we have significant life events, it reorders our spirits. It reorders our perspective. And when we're in a relationship with those around us, they see the reordering happen. And if they've gone through it with us, they are reordered at the same time we were. But if not, they know what we've gone through. And they can understand and reorient themselves to relate to you in the new way because you have new information. You have a new experience. The people that were at that concert see the world much differently today. The people around them will be affected because their relationship has been reordered because of what happened on Monday. It's all connected. The bomber affected everyone on Monday, even me here in Michigan. And that's the goal, I presume, to affect everyone. But the thing is that it doesn't only go one way. It can go the other way too. We can stay connected. We can still affirm what is good. If you continue to create and to love and be in unity, community with each other, then we offer something counter to what that bomber did. In the passage from the Bible, Jesus was leaving. He was going to give his life. The teacher was going away. There was anxiety on behalf of the disciples. When the teacher's gone, that transition can be frightening because what we do is on us after that. The life we curate is our responsibility after that. How we reorder our lives in our own events in our day-to-day is up to us. See, I want to keep teaching my kids, and I want to keep my kids safe. And I want to equip them so that when I am not around, they have everything they need. The art of it is knowing the tipping point. When is it no longer my responsibility to shield them and to let them experience the world as it is? Eventually there's less protecting and there's more pushing, and ultimately there's just loving and guiding and trusting that you've done everything that you can. And then they go out into the world and they make their own mistakes, just like we made ours. You see, when I left high school, I failed to maintain the relationships so that it made for my high school reunion to be awkward. And that was my fault. Relationships need to be maintained so that when we grow spiritually, people can grow with us and adapt to us in our new understanding. And when someone goes off the rails like the bomber did, before it gets that far, someone in community can be brought back to what is good and right. The promise from the scripture that I read is that we will receive a fuller understanding, a fuller revelation, a fuller knowledge of who Jesus is. And when we do what he said to do, and we live the way he showed us to live, that we'll have that deeper understanding and we'll be even more able to do the things that he asks us to do. Do you want to grow spiritually? Are you trying to grow up in your relationship with with things, the mystery of creation of the divine, well, you have to give a little. You have to have an understanding that you may have room to grow. Jesus started something that he showed us in relationships. Relationships matter. It matters that we're together. It matters that we learn and grow together. It matters that Jesus didn't accept violence as a solution. He showed us by loving us first. So how's it with you today? Will we continue to live out the story of violence? Are we allowing the relationship we have with the divine to guide us and to show us more and more as we grow? See, this is the authentic life. To be able to live into the very best version of who we already are. Talk to you next time.
Music is provided by Bleed the Water. Check them out on Facebook. Graphic design by Holly Pole Photography. Go to hollypolephotography.com. This has been a John Pole production.